Welcome in. This is a special edition of the Jim Jackson Show. Of course, I'm going to touch base and touch a little bit on the NBA Finals. Shout out to OKC for, ending the deal. Best team all year. Usually, sometimes that doesn't equate to a championship, but that wasn't the case here. Feel extremely sorry for Tyrese Halliburton for the way it ended. Indiana had a great season. So I'm going to touch on that, some free agency. We got trades, but more importantly, sometimes you got to cross shows over, and have different talent in, different voices, have a different opinion. And right now I got two extremely special guests. One I'm not too sure about, TJ over here to the side.
What up,
I don't know, but O'Shea Jackson Jr., both from No Contest Wrestling podcast. Yep. So we'll get into that too, because I was a huge wrestling guy growing up. So we're going to talk about that. So I thank you for joining me right now. But I'm so happy too, because I worked with your pops, of course, with the Big Three since we started in 2017. We had a chance to chop it up, but not really chop it up. I'm going to be able to do that during our time here on the podcast. But I just want to say what's up, what you've been up to, what's going on. I know the podcast is going, but what other things are you working on right now?
As of now, the focus has been on everything No Contest, with the No Contest Wrestling Podcast, trying to make it as big as we can, take it as many places as we can. And we're not even 50 episodes in, and we're making a splash. People are starting to recognize what we're doing. But other than that, I got a film that I'm doing with Dave Franco and Peter Dinklage over in August. I got to go to Atlanta to film that. Mm-hmm. And in between, waiting to see what big fish I get in the boat from Den of Thieves. I've just been hitting the indies up, doing stuff where, you could really show your acting chops a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Just hitting these indies, quick weeks of work. Obviously good money because I'm a single black father. I'm a single black father.
Right. You got to keep that.
Yeah, just showing off the chops a little bit. I did a film called Ingrid Goes West right after Straight Outta Compton. And that project has gotten me a lot of work.
Really?
Just because when you go the indie route, the festival route, it gets different eyes on you than the popcorn movie would do.
Well, here's the thing. How do you, in Hollywood, you can get typecast, especially you coming out, you playing your father in Straight Outta Compton, but then the role kind of shifts to, I think, a more not maniacal, but intelligent thief in Den of Thieves 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But then how do you kind of drive your career narrative that you don't get boxed in? And that's what you're talking about with the indie stuff, right? Because it happens to a lot of people in Hollywood where they get put in this lane and they have to stay in that lane.
I mean, it all came from a little bit of fear.
Really?
After Straight Outta Compton, I'm thinking, had the #1 movie 3 weeks in a row, Oscar nominated. I'm thinking the phone about to, blow up.
Right.
And it didn't happen. And, for a year, I didn't get work. And it confused me. And then I started to kind of really read into it of when I was first going for the role of Ice Cube and Straight Outta Compton. I had to audition for 2 years, and the studio and the director, when my dad said he wanted me to audition, they asked him, is this a joke? So right then and there, they ain't believing me in there. Mm-hmm. And then once word got out that I was auditioning, then it was, just the talks of if I could even do it. And then once I did it and killed it, it turned into, of course, he could play his dad.
Right.
So then I was like, okay.
Don't give you no props.
No props.
Yeah. So for a year, I'm like, okay, whatever I get has to be completely different from the last thing I did, because I got to show I got range. Mm-hmm. So after that, after Straight Outta Compton, we went the indie route. Kind of a dark comedy with Ingrid Goes West. After that, we got an action film with Den of Thieves 1. And then we went the sci-fi blockbuster with Godzilla. And then after that, I went comedy with Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron and Long Shot. So I've always made sure the next thing we do has to be night and day from the last thing, so they can't put me in a box. And I mean, it's worked out. A lot of the projects that I've taken have helped me get other ones. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, Ingrid Goes West. I had a meeting with a woman named Deborah Chow, and they were doing the Obi-Wan Kenobi series for Disney Plus. And she's talking to me, and she's telling me a lot about the story. And I'm like, I ain't signed an NDA or nothing. Like, are you supposed to be telling me this? She goes, oh, no, you're not auditioning. I want you to have the part.
No, she just gave it to you.
Yeah. And so I'm like, why me? She said, because I love your character in Ingrid Goes West, and I feel like that warmth you'll be able to bring to this character, and that's what I need for this. So, like, those decisions that might not be the biggest payload or whatnot, it's just different eyes on it. The real, the cinema people are looking at those where the commercialized, those fans aren't. And that will help you push forward. So that's what I'm doing now.
Well, listen, here's the thing. So, like, in basketball, football, after a game, we watch film, to see where we can get better, and then take maybe different roles in order to expand our game. From an acting perspective, how do you grow? How do you go back and look at the film and evaluate it and say, you know what, I need to improve on A, B, C, and D? How do you get better as an actor, again, playing these different roles? And on the back end, if you had your choice, when you get your choice, your ideal role?
I think it takes a lot for me to watch myself, because it's, being in film has ruined the way that I look at films. Like, now I'll be watching movies and think that was probably annoying to film, or like I'm sure this took 6 days, or just, I'm looking at
how we watch the game.
I'm looking at it from a different lens. And when I would watch myself, I would critique myself so hard. And then you'd hear somebody be like, man, you killed that. But then in your head, you've knocked yourself down so many times that you can't even really fully enjoy it. So with me, I'll watch it maybe once or twice, take in what I need to take in. All right, we do this too much. All right, we should work on that. And then also it helps to watch other films, watch other people get down, because then you start to get the competitive itch of just like, I could do that. Man, I could kill that. I would kill this.
Right.
And so then you start to try to add it to your own game. And then my ideal role would be a villain, dude. I gotta be
so like Bane, villain like that, or like a villain like
O-Dog.
Like who?
O-Dog.
Yeah, just like
or somebody like, what's like one of those main villains, let's say in Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just real smart, but just intellectual, but just evil. Evil.
Yeah.
Like a Hans Gruber almost.
Almost, yeah.
Definitely, when you're a part of like, superhero lore or like an IP like that, you kind of have to stay true to that character. You don't have necessarily the freedom that you would over something that's, brand new and made up. I mean, you got to find the fun in doing one of those IPs though. So I would definitely not say no, but yeah, something psychological for sure, because, my dad is known for the frown. I'm known I smile way more than my dad. And a smile can be evil just like that.
Well, and Den of Thieves, you think about it, because the way it was written, nobody thought about that part. You see what I'm saying? But here you are playing this psychological role, even in that perspective of how you're able to manipulate the situation, your character. Nobody thinks it is going to be you. Oh, you got all these other players, and now it becomes you that set everybody up, and that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, but with Den of Thieves, it's such a blurred. And that's why I feel like it's such a successful franchise, is because we blur the line so much where you're like, wait, am I supposed to be rooting for the cops? Because I'm not really rooting for the cops, but like they are criminals. So so when it comes to Donnie, you end up rooting for Donnie. I want to be somebody that you're like, oh my God, like, please don't let him be in there. Like old boy in No Country for Old Man. Oh my God.
Anton Chigurh.
Yeah. Like when you see him in the back of a room, you're like, oh, well, they done. Yeah. And
he was a bad dude, man.
Yeah, he was great, dude.
Yeah.
And I would foam at the mouth for something like that.
Well, it's interesting too, because I was talking about getting put in the box, because you are Ice Cube's son. So automatically people go think, all right, he should be in the music and hip hop and doing all of this. But yet you go, now Cube has been acting. Yeah. So you kind of followed a little bit of that from the acting side, but I wouldn't know about this WWE because and the wrestling, because I grew up WWF back in the day, Gordon Soley. We talk about this.
Yeah, man.
It was Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Roddy Piper, British Bulldogs, Jimmy Superfly Snuka. That was my era.
Yeah.
When did you start watching? And you watch it too and get into it.
Yeah.
And
I'm more your era, though.
you're with us right here.
I'm closer to your age.
Superstar.
Superstar Billy Graham?
Yeah.
I mean, look, dude, like you said, you hit it. Ultimate Warrior.
Ultimate Warrior, yes.
You know, well, first of all, a man whose name doesn't get mentioned enough. Oh, yeah, brother. Freak.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
Come get the coffee.
The Macho Man
Randy
And
Savage.
to this day, there's no one quite like Macho Man Savage. When you look at everything that makes up a wrestler, you're looking at in-ring, and you're also looking at that visual presentation. The man's just like the way he was dressed, the robes, the hats, the
box
gear.
office. He on ads.
Yeah,
bro.
he on
ads,
I'm gonna
man.
sell
You know,
something for you.
And then the promos, like Macho Man, he was him back then.
Wasn't he selling like beef jerky and stuff like that?
Slim Jim.
Slim Jim.
Slim Jim.
Wrap into a Slim Jim. That's right.
You, Jim Jackson, the guy with the big guns, bro.
Yeah. So how did you get it? I mean,
I had a big brother, man. I had a big brother, my big brother Daryl, and I really got introduced to wrestling through video games. Sega Genesis, it was a game called WWF Raw, and you know, him teaching me was him teaching me. All right, you should pick him. All right, no, you want to pick Undertaker? I'll be Shawn Michaels, or I'll be Razor Ramon. You be, just like that's how I learned who these people were, and then from
So
there,
he wasn't putting you with jobbers, He
No,
he didn't make you be the Mulkey brothers.
Well, we used to give Doink the Clown work, bro. But yeah, from there he was like, we can we can watch these people, and I'm thinking it's just a game.
Yeah,
right.
And so he showed me Undertaker, and rolling his eyes back, and like we started watching wrestling. We would catch it every now and then, but I really started to watch it on a weekly basis around 98 to 2000. That's when I'm watching it every week. Like I gotta see what's happening. It became the biggest soap opera of my life, and so I'm watching obviously Stone Cold, The Rock, Taker, Mick Foley, later on Kurt Angle, and it took over, and I kind of never really let it go. There was a portion of my life where I stopped watching on a weekly basis, but then I came back around, I think maybe 2012, 2013, where I was just like, let me peep it, see it again, and I start to see, just the stars of today on the rise, and a couple of people that I knew from back when. And now in my adult life, especially with the career that I chose, I look at it like these people are doing what I do with no cuts, no redos. It's live.
No stuntman.
Because Lord knows I use a stuntman. But no, like it's just like you got to bring it, and as far as character work, they got to add to their character every week. They have to make sure that character is not stale every week, and then put that on top of the travel and the risk. And if you can't appreciate all the mental and physical work that has to go into that, you're not looking at wrestling the right way.
Well, but this is what blows me away about it. A lot of people over the years have mentally bought into a individual, a team, or just wrestling, period, knowing that it's purely entertainment.
Yeah.
That it's, and I don't like to use the word fake,
because
you don't use that in wrestling.
Yeah, easy now.
That's why I don't like to use. But a lot
predetermined
of
outcome.
Exactly, but a lot of people will
walk off.
You know what I mean? But it amazes me. It amazes me to this day how big and popular it is, knowing that it's a predetermined outcome.
Yeah.
Why is that? How does it continue just to grow like this over the years? Because of the characters?
Yeah, it definitely is the characters, and with social media and things, you've started to kind of see the individual as well, and then you start to really root for somebody. We were just talking about a reality show that they used to have, Total Divas. It kind of pulled the veil a little bit on wrestling for women, and you see them as a person, and it's not just when you start to dehumanize somebody, whether that be a player, whether that be an actor, or like they're just there for the entertainment, you lose track of this is a person with hopes, dreams, and aspirations. And so you kind of get, nowadays, you get tied to these superstars and you want to see them succeed, and you understand that it's politics and you're just hoping to see them break through. And when you see them break through, it is such a good feeling. You have situations like Daniel Bryan with WWE or Kofi Kingston, more just recently, Jey Uso. They find these people and you get attached to them, and you know that the business is all about, politics. And you're just hoping that they break through that.
So every now and then they'll listen to the crowd. In the cases of those people we mentioned, Daniel Bryan, Kofi Kingston, and Jey Uso specifically, those were guys who probably, especially under the old regime, wouldn't have gotten a chance to be top guys because they're not giants. They weren't what the company was looking for and pushing. But the fans were so adamant about pushing these guys that they had no choice but to listen and put them on.
So that's what I was going to ask you. Like, how do from a wrestling perspective, because you have all these dynamic personalities, and it's some that resonate a lot more than others, even though this one may be better, this person, but it resonates. Is there what you found when they go to pick who's going to be next? What's that process like? Is it a combination of just based on fan reaction?
If that helps the most, for sure.
Okay.
It helps the most for sure, because we've seen a lot of people get what's called, pushed, like, with all the crowd backing in the world, but maybe not as much ring ability as, so-and-so. And when you find the perfect blend of not only can I talk a good game, but I could put on a show, that's when you start to see your legends. That's when you start to see the people that people remember, because we all know what we're looking at. And if for a moment you can make me feel like it was real right there, and you can keep doing that, you go into the Hall of Fame. You got people behind you. You made me, even with this knowledge of the business that I had, you made me believe. And that right there is the essence of everything that they put on. And so, you got situations where there's a wrestler that we both are huge fans of by the name of Shinsuke Nakamura. All right. One of the greatest, in-ring performers.
My favorite male wrestler.
Yeah, dude is just a rock star. But when it comes to cutting promos, English isn't his first language.
Japan.
So I've always felt like WWE can't fully
they can't really get behind him and really push it like that.
Because he can't, he's not cutting rock level promos or
he's not going to the Good Morning Americas and
speaking
things
about it.
And it kind of stinks, because when it comes to everything else professional wrestling related, he's got it. But because the promo thing is such a big part of it, it's kind of hard to push people when they're not speaking.
They can't tell.
By the way,
this
isn't anything that we agree with, but it is what it is.
But look at it back in our day. You had Hulk Hogan because he was so gregarious. You're talking about Randy Savage, but one of the big stars was Andre the Giant, but you couldn't really promote and push Andre, even though he was one of the premier highlights. When he and Hulk Hogan were going to go at it, when they finally were going to fight, it was huge. But
it was the biggest.
It was the biggest, right? But you had this personality with Hulk, but then you had this outstanding individual with Andre, but you really couldn't, because you couldn't market him the right way.
Yeah.
Well, also the thing with Andre is, what are you going to do with Andre? Because if Andre decides he don't want to do something, he wasn't going to do it, right? So what Vince McMahon Sr. did was smart when he got a hold of Andre, is he would let him go to different promotions. You remember back in those days, before the internet, before all the stuff where we know everything's going on now, you could have a guy wrestle in, Texas. So you can have him wrestle in Missouri, Florida, Minneapolis with AWA. You can move them around. That way, the people in the area don't get too comfortable seeing him, right? And also now you move him around, so now you're constantly putting new eyes on him and his legend. Because Andre the Giant, man, I feel amazing that we actually got to live at a time where Andre was alive. He was probably passed by the time you got in, but Andre the Giant was real, and he's this mythological figure, and that's what happened. He was able to travel the world because he wasn't stuck in one promotion, and now everyone got to see him, but you didn't get to see him wrestle the same people over and over. So it was always fresh people, new eyes on Andre, and that's why he became what he became.
And that's hard to do in this generation, because back in the old days, you had that special feeling. Now I see you every week. Now I see you every single week.
Same thing in basketball, though.
Yeah. So you start to there's situations where they start to write themselves into a corner. Like there was a rest in peace, Bray Wyatt. He had this character known as the Fiend. All right. And the Fiend was just this unstoppable force of just like, you can't kill it. You can't get it down, you know? And so the crowd is waiting for the Fiend every week and they go ballistic and like there's merch being sold and there's just all this behind it. So now we got to put the belt on him. But you built this unstoppable force. How is he ever supposed to lose? And then when you start to make him lose, it's like the magic is gone.
Magic is gone.
The magic is gone.
So that's that dynamic of, I guess, with anything too, because you build somebody up, you build them up, and you know they have the reach, they have the bandwidth.
Yeah.
And then at what point is that star so big that it starts to diminish a little bit more and you're not getting all of it out of it? I mean, basketball, listen, one of the best things happened was having, social media for a lot of these guys. But one of the worst things was the nostalgia, the like what made Michael so special, Jordan, at his time, is because you didn't really know a lot. Like when Mike came to town.
By the way, you didn't have to say Jordan. We knew who.
Oh yeah, of course. When you say you say Mike. When you say Mike, and we talk, you already know who it is. But right. So listen, when he came, it's just nostalgia. It's this mystery still about him that made people even go more crazy because of. And I think in today's world, because the stars have so much access, people have so much access to their everyday life, to what they're doing. A part of that nostalgia and that mystery,
the mystery is lost.
Because I know so much about you.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then they start to pick holes at you and start to do things, and leagues are trying to figure out, how do we hold on to our most valuable assets and make them here? Yeah. But then still give our fans access.
Yeah, it's a weird balance. I try to find that balance, with my own career, because there's a certain mystique about, you only see Leonardo DiCaprio when it's time to do a movie. You only see Brad Pitt when he got a movie to sell you. And I'm in the generation of, streaming and all this stuff where, I mean, you go on my Instagram, I don't post my business, but when you do see me, it's either no contest or movies. But I know that in this new internet age, if I just sat around and waited for my phone to ring for somebody to offer me a script, I'm gonna be, I'm out. So, it's about finding a balance of way of having, your brand, like that's the word everybody likes to use, but still in a way of not selling yourself, and that is it's hard to do, because once people start to get that light, you want to be in it all the time. You want to be in it all the time. Yeah, and it's man, when I first did Straight Outta Compton, I told somebody that the fame and attention and all that, it is like a jellyfish. Like, it looks great, it looks beautiful, but don't you dare get caught up in it, because it's a wrap, So it's the new athlete, the new actor, the new WWE or wrestling star in general. It is about a way of making yourself likable, relatable, and still a product worth buying without necessarily giving up your armor. Because when you give up that armor, like you said, they'll just poke holes in you and rip your legacy to shreds.
But it's so hard too, because imagine, especially with a lot of athletes today, they see what whatever league it is can give them, what the lifestyle can give them. So whether they're 15, 16, 17 years old, they see it. It's right there in front of their face, their favorite athlete, whatever sport it is.
So now they got NIL too.
And now you got NIL. So now you're a pro while you're in college. And that whole expectation level is going to be different now for college student athletes, okay? Because you're going to be expected to perform, and when you don't, that money probably is going to be taken away. They're going to move to that. And I think parents got to understand that too, that now their son, their daughter is going to be looked at as a professional athlete.
A commodity.
A commodity. And as a program, if I'm paying you all this money, my patience is thin. Before I could be cool and be like, I can wait after your freshman year, sophomore, you grow. Now, if I'm paying you right out the gate, I expect something. So for you to talk like that in today's world about a certain anonymity and keeping that, I think that shows a lot of maturity because it's easy. I say, listen, that camera is as addictive as any drug.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's why a lot of people they'll do a lot of reality shows that don't get paid, but people recognize them because of that. And that endorphin, that fuels that.
Kind of powerful.
That powerful. And to be able to live in it, but not stay in it.
Right.
Is a unique trait to have.
But you're lucky in that sense because, look, you may have gotten caught up, but because of who you are and who your pops are, who your family is, you already had someone who already went down that road. And they already, I'm sure your pops, he put you on game to everything you were going to know. There's probably stuff that he taught you that you won't even get to until later. So you were lucky in that sense that you didn't have to navigate that, man. You had someone to tell you, no, this is, do this, don't do that.
Yeah. I like to tell people, like, everyone says, I'm Ice Cube's son. I am not Ice Cube's son. I'm O'Shea Jackson's senior's son. And when he come in the door, Ice Cube is gone. Right. Ice Cube is gone. Like, and so
like you said, the one show, like, he ain't mad around the house.
Exactly. Like,
He ain't frowning around
cussing everybody out all day.
When you were doing the show, and you were like, what do you think? He's sitting there eating cereal in the morning with a scowl?
Just mad.
Right?
Yeah, no. So, like, it's a mask that you have to put on as soon as you go on the public eye. And, to anybody out there listening, bro, you want to be rich, not famous. You got to figure that out.
Pac said that. Give me the money.
Yeah, man.
But here's the thing too, though. So the other side of that is, well, you're already there. So it's your decision making is a lot different. It's easy to say, like people say, people with money. Well, money ain't everything. Well, yeah. Well, you got money. Yeah. You can say that. Yeah, right. You got. Of course, you can say that. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things too, where it's. You kind of got to go, every individual got to go through it. And we've had examples of where a male, female may have had a famous parent and got taught the game, but still
effed it up.
Still messing.
So many.
So it depends on that level of maturity and everything. And that goes back to you too, understanding kind of what you want, how you want to be viewed, what you want in your career. And then when it was time for you to kind of where the rubber really meets, where you can say all the stuff you want. Yeah. But when that thing come crashing at you with the fame and the accolades and people want, that's when the decision making comes in.
Yeah. And there's been plenty of sacrifices and decisions that I've had to make. Like my friends know I just can't hang how I used to. Yep. It sucks, but I can't. 4 straight out of Compton. My friends took me to Six Flags one last time type, just like, or let's have a Vegas trip one last time because everybody's going to be looking now. There's always going to be a camera on me. I'm always going to be at risk. Like it is what it is. And even when it came time to decide on what I wanted to do for my career, because I did try the rapping thing. And what I realized that I was getting out of that is I got a kick out of saying lines that make you think, who thinks of that? Just being able to impress people with my words. What I didn't realize is that it was more of a love of writing than it was a love of writing songs. So then, I had a teacher catch me daydreaming in class one day. Shout out to Hernan. He put a notebook in front of me and he was like, listen, whatever you're thinking about, just write it down. And then when you're done, can you come back to me? And so I was like, all right. And he gave me 30 minutes each class to write whatever was in my head, And I ended up writing a 120-page handwritten story. And then he was like, have you ever thought about doing scripts? And then so he got me my teacher, Bill Rubenstein, who taught me how to break that story into script form. And that is what I used to get into USC. And so like that's where I got this love of writing, and I'm still trying to do music. And when it came time for Straight Outta Compton, I had to ask myself, what am I really going to give my all to? I don't want to do both. And the way that I looked at it is music wise, my family name is cemented forever. Like there's no higher that I think I can take it from where my dad is taking it.
I doubt you could top No Vaseline.
Yeah, exactly. I've never been that mad in my life. So when it came to film, I've always felt like Hollywood typecast rappers. Because they're scared of my dad, because my dad's Ice Cube, because they fear him so much. Every movie that they give him, he is the yelling black dude who might kill you. You know, like that's just how they see him. So that's what they offer him. But when he writes for himself, you get, you know, the barbershops, you get the Fridays, you get the wholesome side of him.
So is he writing for O'Shea?
Yeah, exactly. Because that's what he can do. And I know they don't give him. So I saw that as, all right, that's where I can take us higher. And so I chose film over music because basically nobody wants to see Superman throw $100 bills at a girl in a music video. They're just not going to give you stuff like that once they see you in that character, if you will. So like I chose film. I love telling this story. My dad used to get nominated for the VMAs, the movie awards for MTV. And I wanted that popcorn so bad, and we never got it. Like Adam Sandler took it from him twice, I think. And I had resentment for Adam Sandler for years. But then like when Straight Outta Compton happened, it fell on the 25th anniversary of the movie awards. So they had black and gold popcorn that year. And the popcorn I was waiting for my whole life had my name on it. So then I know it's not like the most prestigious award, but I told myself I need to go get every award that they weren't going to give him in acting. Wow. And so that was my motivation. And it's just those type of choices that fuel a lot of the choices I do to this day of what to do and what not to do.
See, and that's more important too. Like I got an older son, and I said the decision on what not to do is as important as anything. Yes. Because that right there, now again, you're not going to make all the right decisions, but when you have that in mind, it eliminates and keeps you away from a lot of the stuff. Yeah. What I'm not willing to do. So now that prevents me from moving forward.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it, man.
I found that growing up. Of course, no, not being a family like yours, but just in general, I found myself throughout my whole life, even to today, making decisions based upon the fact that I never want to disappoint.
Yeah.
When I was little, it was like I never wanted to disappoint my grandparents. Like I never wanted to do anything that would make them have to look at me a certain way. You know, I never want to disappoint my mom or my aunts or my sisters or your family. So that, for me, you know, a lot of the decisions I made on my life were just based solely upon, you know, thinking about the outcome and going, man, I can't imagine a phone ringing at that house and one of them picking it up and hearing I did something. Like me, like, nah, man. Yeah. It was just like, I probably missed out on so much in life just because I couldn't do that.
You think you missed out.
I think I missed out. I missed out. But it was worked to my favor because I always had those people that made me go, I can never disappoint them.
Yeah. Thinking about a strong family tie too, because I know Cube is a big Laker fan.
Absolutely.
You are too, right?
100%.
Okay. So let's transition real quick.
Life.
So how much interest did you have in the final just because no Lakers?
I mean, a little bit. I found a way to cheer because you got former Laker Alex Caruso on the Thunder
trying to win a real chip.
You got a former says the Clipper, by the way. You got a former Laker Thomas Bryant on the Pacers. And plus, my uncle Mike Epps is from Indiana, so right. You know, I was rooting for him a little bit. But yeah, as a Laker fan, it pleases me to see these teams win their first championship. You know, it's cute.
First, it's cute.
Yeah, you know, adorable.
It's so stupid.
Yeah, I mean, we had our first five when we were in an entirely different state.
Hold on, so you count Minneapolis?
Only because we still have the name Lakers. If we were the Minneapolis, you know, whatevers, and we came to LA and became the LA Lakers, then I'd be like, that's a completely different team.
Hold on. Tell me, are you a baseball fan?
Absolutely.
You're a Dodger fan?
Yep.
What was their original name?
Oh, the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they moved over here. That's fine. That's still the Dodgers.
And they kept their name.
They kept their name. But if you got a situation like Sonics and Thunder,
that's two different
things. That's two different things.
Yeah.
T, what was your take on the finals?
It was, you get the noise, right?
Look at it. And a lot of fans thought that going into the series.
Saying. Like a lot of people wanted to be like, well, there's no marquee teams or not the marquee names, but if you're just a real basketball fan and you just watch this series, it was really good basketball. What happened to Halliburton, of course, like you said, obviously terrible because Halliburton, when you look back at this playoffs, he gave us all the moments, right?
No, he did with the game-winning shot. Yeah.
And then the next thing, and then hitting the shot in game one against the Thunder. So I think that is what was so depressing and disappointing, seeing him go down so early, is because he was almost like the soundtrack to these playoffs, right?
Yeah.
But the Thunder, statistically speaking, one of the greatest seasons of all time, right?
In a lot of different categories.
A lot of different categories. You've got SGA, right? Who the last time I was on your pod, I told you how I felt as a Clipper fan, losing this kid, right? But also at the time in 2019,
you had no idea.
There was no one who would not have taken Paul George, right? So you can't look at it. It's hard not to look at it like that, but it's still, you have to look at it. It was a move that was necessary. It didn't work out. Unfortunately, it might go down as the worst trade ever. But, SGA, he's a guy who, we people talk about superstars. Who's a superstar, who's not? I think Magic said a superstar is someone who doesn't watch the sport knows, right? So I don't think either of those guys, Halliburton or SGA, are there yet. Yeah. But from a basketball perspective, I love the mid-range game, right? I was just watching, right before I was talking to you last night, 30 for 30 was on, The Last Dance was playing. And it wasn't 30 for 30, it was The Last Dance. Yeah. And I'm just watching Mike just
get to his spot.
Get to his spot, 12 to 18 feet, elbow jumpers, just using the glass. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, if you're a young buck, I understand the three-pointer. Steph made the three-pointer sexy. Steph Curry changed the game. And I guess statistically speaking, the three might be a better shot. But, man, the mid-range game, if you can master that, you're going to get 20, 25 a game and without shooting all the threes. I love SGA's game, man. And it does hurt. It does hurt, but I'm happy for him to see his development and how great he's become. It was a fun series, I think.
I think what people, obviously everybody wants the Steph made the 3-pointer as big as a dunk, right? And but when you think about those Warriors teams that won, aside from the year where they beat Boston, you got Sean Livingston carving you up from the mid-range when the three's not going down. Or you got Kevin Durant pulling up mid-range when the three's not going down. So you need that. You always need to have that to keep the defense honest anyway. Or that's what you use for your pick and roll and all of that. So, the mid-range is a lost art, bro. Shout out to DeMar DeRozan.
And you think about it, look at the Bulls' first run. Steve Kerr hit that shot. That wasn't a three. That was top of the key jumper. Paxson hit the shot.
Paxson hit the shot.
Jordan shot over Elo and Byron Russell. They were all
mid-range.
Right,
but see, here's the thing too. When you always talk about the shooting, you talk about Steph, where numbers don't tell the whole story. Like Steph is going to go down as the greatest shooter of all time. Does that mean he's a better shooter than Larry Bird? I say no. I say the volume in which Steph shot it. They're going to say, well, Larry didn't shoot from half court. I said that wasn't the game at the time. Larry Bird shot 2 to 3 3-pointers a game, and that was a lot. So the numbers are going to skew more towards Steph because he revolutionized that, and shooting 10 to 12 3-pointers a game, he could do it. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's a better, I'm saying this shooter, because Bird didn't have the bandwidth to do that back in the day. Reggie Miller didn't have the bandwidth to do it back in the day. But what I loved about the series was is that, and you said it, TJ, from a pure basketball perspective, you had two kind of young teams. Pascal Siakam, he had won he's done his thing. Turner had been there a while. But pretty much you had a young core of guys leading the way. But what's really interesting, this is what's going to be really interesting to see. When Golden State won it, teams tried to emulate Golden State and shoot. When Boston won it, teams wanted to emulate 5 out, 5 guys be able to shoot, and they wanted to emulate that. Not so much, I don't think, Milwaukee when they won it, because it's hard to get a Giannis.
They don't grow on trees.
They don't grow on trees. And it's hard to get a Brook Lopez, too.
Yeah,
I mean, you see what I'm saying? But it's going to be interesting to see how teams now, because of Indiana depth,
how they built
OKC, how they built themselves, are they now looking at that formula moving forward?
Yeah, right.
Because it's going to be interesting, because you got your superstar, but not, I mean, you got your star, but not superstar, surrounded by really good complementary players that know their role, that all year they've played. And now, even in the championship game, when Hallie went down, Indiana was up at halftime.
Nembhard hit the 3 right before.
Because those guys played a specific role all year. They were comfortable. Now, long term, it was going to hurt them because extended minutes happened and the turnovers happened. But that's, to me, was going to be interesting on how teams look at building out their rosters moving forward based on what we saw with this championship.
Because success is going to create copycats. So they were able to do this. Now, other teams, I think it is going to happen. They're going to try to construct themselves in the form of a Thunder or a Pacers.
Yeah, it stopped being, when Boston, had the Boston 3 party, it started to become like, all right, if we're top heavy with a couple of guys on the bench, we'll be okay. Yeah. Now it really feels like they're going to be finding guys that fit the way that we play. Like, do you fit our scheme? And can we take if a gear falls out, can we put in another one and it still work? And, that used to be them Greg Popovich Spurs.
Big time.
It would be like, it'd be a bunch of people. I'm like, when did this dude get in the league? Right. Who is this?
Who is this
corner 3?
But you know what? OKC going to have that situation come up soon, because if you look at where their contract situation is at, a guy like Lou Dort, 3 more years left on his deal. Jalen Williams has 2 years left on his deal. They're going to have to pay him. Chet Holmgren has 2 years left on his deal. So those are the 2 right there you look at and say they got to get paid.
Yeah.
But what franchises and organizations are looking at too, I don't want to have to pay this first apron, second apron of the salary cap. See what Boston did now today, or yesterday, they traded Drew Holiday. They may make another trade because their payroll was over $500 million. They're like, man, we need to get this thing down. Can we win and not have this exorbitant payroll?
Big names
that we have to pay. Now, you got to pay. The thing about the salary cap is you got to pay 90% of the cap. But how you pay it and spread it out, so you're not so much top heavy, and you can't move a contract. Say like a Bradley Beal, because he has a no trade clause, so you get stuck. So it's funny how we talk about copycat league, but how you have an idea just a few years ago of building a big 3 or big 2. Now it starts to shift, and we don't want to pay. We don't want to be heavy because part of what the salary cap and CBA was all about was being able to retain your own talent, your superstar. And paying them the supermax. My thing is, too, I like this. If you got a rookie, right, and you develop them, and now you want to sign them to a big deal, I would like to think that a certain percentage of that money only counts against the cap. That now you still have cap flexibility because you groomed this young man or these players. You should be able to pay them without being penalized, because that's what's going to happen with OKC. You see what I'm saying?
Because then because if you don't have it like that, you start to make the small market franchises look like farming systems for the big ones.
They go look. Because OKC is going to have to figure out their payroll structure. Deshaun Wallace with Lou Dort and
they about to get another top 10 pick if they trade.
That's what I'm saying. So now they have to make a decision. Now they can, because they're flexible, they can lose a Lou Dort and slide somebody else in, but you developed them that whole time, and now you're getting hamstrung, and now you got to lose them.
I think the problem for everybody else with the Thunder is this: their top 9 scorers are all under contract for the next season. They have no key free agents, and they've got 13 first-round draft picks in the next 7 drafts.
Thanks, Clippers.
I know really. Another thing is, I don't really recall anyone talking about this whole playoff, how how much Paul George had a hand in developing
big time.
the Pacers,
the Pacers and the Thunder.
Both of those teams had key components who were on that team because of Paul George. So 13 first-round picks in the next 7 drafts, and no, we haven't had a repeat champion in a while, which makes me think that statistically it probably won't happen. But I don't know. When you look at all this info and you see this team, it's like, how can you sit here and not think, okay, they got at least maybe 2, maybe 3 championships with this squad?
Yeah, but with the guys that's under contract. Again, Jalen is the one because he has 2 years.
He's the one that he
26, 27, his deal is up.
They got to keep him.
But, now his baseline is this. So you paying Isaiah Hartenstein 30.
Yeah.
That's my baseline on where I'm starting this conversation.
So if you paying him 30, I'm 45.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Sorry, dude.
And I think in the situation of them going back to back, when you become champion, and just a tidbit, because TJ was talking about how this finals was, just really all about, if you loved watching basketball, this was a great finals for you, which is something a Clipper fan has to say, because it's never about winning championships. He just loves
I work
watching.
for the Clippers, man.
Yeah,
so you throwing it at me too,
you
right?
just a rooster that don't crow no more, Jim Jackson. Anyway, as I was saying.
Yeah, okay.
When going back to back, TJ, going back to back, what happens when you are that on display, where you are the team to win the championship? Now everybody is building to stop you.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying earlier.
Yeah, they're watching the Pacers and their game plan. Tyrese Halliburton getting hurt, we don't know if OKC was going to pull that game out. The man was hit 3 threes in a row, then went down.
7 points in 9 minutes or something
so
like that.
we don't know if OKC, we will never know if they were going to win with a healthy Pacer squad. So there is a formula to beat them out there. They went to game 7. And now teams are going to be watching how the Pacers played them, working in the offseason, whether that is the players that they already have.
Roster construction. If they want to play like Indiana.
Exactly. So, back to back, it's hard to do.
There you go.
I guess, LeBron did go back to back. And then, Kobe. That's crazy. But anyway, yeah.
Hey, speaking of Kobe, you came up with a great idea.
Yeah.
Topic for conversation.
Like how I said, it was a great
idea. Come on. So we want you to chime in on this one, too. Okay. So,
all right. So, Jim, this is 2025. Yep. I saw something a few weeks ago where someone had made up the all 25-year, all quarter decade, or quarter century, I'm sorry, not quarter decade. That doesn't make sense. Right. The all quarter century baseball team, right? And they picked basically an all-star team of players from the last 25 years.
Yeah.
So a few weeks ago, I was talking to Jim. I was like, well, I had this idea, man. I'm like, I came up with my own all quarter century team for the NBA. So I want to share it with you guys.
From 2025.
To see what you guys think about this.
Okay.
And so
now, how did you break it down? Is it by team?
What I did was I went traditional.
You went position by position.
Position by position with the starters. I put center power, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then just kind of looked to see who had the biggest impact, who was the greatest at that spot over the last 25 years.
Okay.
So you just want to jump in there?
Yeah, jump in. Let me see what you got.
So starting at the center, Shaquille O'Neal. Let's just put it that way. He's the starter, 3 titles, the most dominant player ever. Shaquille O'Neal at the center. I got Tim Duncan at the power forward. 4 titles, 2 MVPs. 2 final MVPs, the greatest power forward ever. At the 3, that's LeBron James at the 3. 4 titles, 4 MVPs, 4 finals MVPs, 9 finals. At the 2, take a guess. I'll let you say his name.
Well, you already know who it is.
Okay. Yeah. The Mamba.
I'm loving this team.
5 titles. The man influenced the world. And then at the point, I got Steph Curry. 4 titles, 2 MVPs, 1 finals MVP.
Yeah.
Like we said, he changed the game of basketball. Sometimes I say he ruined the game of basketball because these kids, where am I at? Kids, you ain't Steph Curry. You can't shoot like Steph.
Hey, the coaches ruined it. He didn't ruin it.
He didn't ruin it.
Because the coaches let him. So, you like that 5?
Man, it's a lot of purple and gold on it. I love it.
That's my top 5 too.
Okay,
the exact same 5 that you. And I didn't do it by position. I just did it by impact and by winning. And I don't think people understand how dominant, especially in the finals, Shaq was.
Yeah,
I mean, disgusting. I mean,
it was ridiculous.
Nothing. I know Jersey didn't have the center, or Indiana at the time.
Aaron Williams did his best.
He did his best, but who? I don't care what center you had.
Not at that time. No.
And Tim Duncan is one because they didn't win the back-to-back, but it was like every other year. San Antonio's there.
Exactly.
And Tim, because of his unassuming personality, he gets lost in the conversation when we start talking about the best that ever played. Mm-hmm. I mean, because again, we look at it.
He wasn't flashy.
He wasn't flashy. I said Kareem. Probably one of the great. He's probably the greatest basketball player from high school. If you put his high school statistics, college statistics, and pro, nobody else stacks up to that. Yeah. And I've said that for forever. Okay, so your second is this is gonna be good.
So then I went with a 5-man bench.
Okay.
I got Joker in there, Nikola Joker. Okay. I mean, you're talking one title, 3 MVPs, one final MVP, just dominant right now. He got that nod. D Wade. At there, 3 titles, 1 finals MVP, Flash. I also got KD, Kevin Durant, 2 titles, 2 finals MVPs. Kawhi, 2 championships, 2 different teams, 2 finals MVPs. I mean, that's the guy right there, man. And he was the best player on 2 championship teams, obviously. This last one was tough, man, this last spot, because there were 3 guys I was trying to decide between. Dirk Nowitzki, KG, and the guy I eventually went with, Giannis. Yeah. So that was the hardest to leave those 2 out.
See, that second unit is a lot tougher, I think, than the first.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's not a lot of, like, I had Jokic, of course. I had D Wade. I had KD.
Okay.
I had actually KG. I had Kevin Garnett.
I got no problem with that.
Okay. And I had Giannis. And it was Dirk is right there. And I'm like, okay, but it's a small, and again, the list, people going to put the list, is semantics of what you want. And people going to say, well, where's Allen Iverson?
Yeah. And first of all, that Allen Iverson is my second favorite player of all time behind Dr. J. But I couldn't realistically put him on this list and leave Kawhi off?
Right.
Like leave.
I mean, some people may not like, but James Harden, what the numbers that he put together.
But again, without a title,
again, but
seeing what Kawhi did.
LeBron said titles really ring culture. Don't.
Yeah, I would say that too if I was up there with Steve Nash.
Steve Nash, 2 MVPs.
Steve Nash, he was on. Like I said, I had a 12-man. It was tough to cut that second fight down.
Well, I was on. So during that season, I was with the Suns when he won his second, when Kobe averaged 37.
Well, that's that 06 Kobe.
Yeah, 06 Kobe, and I ended up coming to the Lakers. Okay, to play, and we ended up playing Phoenix in the first round of the playoffs. Anyway, so I was there during that time when that whole thing, and it is amazing to me too that Shaquille and Kobe have only won 2 in between the 2 of them. Now. I mean, that's
crazy.
That's bananas. Yeah. But it goes to show you too that in that mid period, how I would say because of Tim Duncan, because of Shaq, because of the emergence of LeBron James, that it was a tough separation between, and then it skewed down to winning. A lot had to do with the winning. Yeah. To the winner went the spoils. That was at the time when Phoenix won it at 62 games, the winner went to spoils, a lot of times. But I thought Kobe deserved, and Shaq, more than what they've got.
Yeah. But absolutely. Make no mistake about this. Steve Nash was a bad
Come on, man.
And I was thinking this last night. I was just randomly start watching this Steve Nash highlight on YouTube after I posted the stuff on for No Contest. Just watching him play, I literally just went, man, I miss watching Steve Nash.
Let me tell you something. One time we were playing Golden State, and I was on the I wasn't starting, of course. I was coming off the bench.
What do you mean, of course?
Jim Jackson.
No, man. I was old at the time.
Okay.
But here's the thing that I was mesmerized. First quarter of this game against Golden State, Steve orchestrated the offense like no other. I mean, it was unreal. He was putting guys in places, and what made Steve so outstanding as a leader is that left hand, right hand. He can drop passes in off the wrong foot. He's doing all this little stuff.
His mid-range.
So what Steve was really good at was he wasn't the fastest. So once he gave it up,
quick,
like Steph, he'll catch it back on the move, which put his defender on his hip. So then Steve could get downhill and turn the corner. You come, he dropping down. I was sitting there watching, and then Mike D'Antoni was like calling me to come in again. I couldn't even hear him. I was just sitting there. I'm like, huh? Because that's what Steve did, and you didn't expect it from that man from Santa Clara.
Yeah.
You knew what he did in Dallas. It was cool. It was great. But the stuff we saw in Phoenix, man, was just
him and Stoudemire together.
Bro, it was different,
dude.
man.
That boy he lick his fingers,
bro.
put the hair back.
No,
was
man.
his thing.
It was something.
And also, Steve Nash, bigger than you think. I met him and Tony
About
Parker.
6'2".
I'm 6'3". I met him and Tony Parker the same summer in New York, about a week apart. You look at them because there's giants out there. You assume they're small. Tony Parker and Steve Nash both taller than me.
Yeah, it's a
and
good thing,
man.
And I'm like 4 inches taller than you.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
You know.
Hey man,
make believe.
Listen, man, I truly appreciate you guys coming.
Before we go, Jim,
what you got?
The draft is coming up, right?
What's that?
The NBA draft is coming
Is
up.
it?
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
on
tomorrow?
Isn't it tomorrow? Yeah.
Tomorrow's the draft. And before we go, it just made me think of something.
Right.
You know, we talked about Shaq.
Yeah.
His alter ego, Shaq Fu. I still listen to Shaq Diesel, the album on times.
Can you stand in the rain?
Yeah.
But he had a song in a bar where he said, "Who's the first pick? Me. Word is born. Not a Christian Laettner, not Alonzo Mourning, who went 2 and 3." But what people might not realize is in that 1992 draft, do you know who got drafted 4th in that draft after Mourning and Laettner? Just take a guess.
Not me.
I'll make it easier for you. He might be in this room.
Oh man.
Jimmy Jackson drafted.
It was.
What do you remember about that 1992 draft, man? And your whole life changed, right?
I was doomed from the start because they moved it to Portland. No disrespect to Portland. No disrespect.
Keep Portland weird.
But and I played for the Trailblazers later on.
Yeah.
But it was weird because you grow up and you watching the draft is in New York,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they moved it to Portland.
Yeah.
The only time
Going on.
and they moved it back to New York the next year, right?
Okay.
But here was the interesting part. So that year, pretty much everybody knew Shaq was going to be number one. Now, Shaq and I came out of high school together, 89 too. So we were juniors. Christian and Alonzo were seniors.
Yeah.
Okay. But 2, 3, and 4, you really didn't know because it was Minnesota, Charlotte, and then Dallas.
Yeah.
Okay. So 1, pretty much Shaq. 2, 3, 4.
was open.
It was open. So I knew I was in there somewhere, but I just didn't know until actually at the draft when they called my name. So it wasn't predetermined. But you know what? Let me take that back. When Minnesota drafted Christian
at 3.
I pretty much knew
You were going to
that
Dallas.
because they had traded Rolando Blackman from Dallas to New York.
Okay.
So the 2 opened up. But it's weird, man, because you work to get to a certain point where you achieve a dream of getting drafted.
Yeah.
And being drafted that high meant a lot, especially coming from Toledo, Ohio at the time, and who was playing college
Shout out to
basketball.
Toledo.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Steve Mason.
There you go, 419 all the way. So, but it's like a surreal moment, okay?
Can't even imagine.
It's like, it's the beginning is not the ending of anything. It's the beginning of something
The rest
special.
of your life.
Okay, the rest of your life. You worked your way 18 years. Well, really, I wouldn't when I was out the womb, but let's say 12 years of just really just working to get to this point.
And everything you sacrificed, I'm sure.
Everything you sacrificed, it was a combination of that, I think, emotional. It was excitement. But then there's also, I pat myself on the back, you put in the work to put yourself in this position to be here. But it was a combination, too, of having a very successful college career with some great teammates. If we don't win, if we don't do the things that we do, I may not be in that position. You know what I'm saying? To be 4th pick. So it's a lot of things. It's not just one singular. Now, some people can compartmentalize it and say it was this. To me, it was all the people that helped me along the way. To get to that point, to keep me away from things, but to push me to really focus on becoming the best player. And then it's a reflection of, like you said, a lot of things I gave up to put myself in a position where I thought I was giving up.
Yeah.
to be able to be the best basketball player I could be at that time. Now, whatever happened after that, some things were out of my control, like when I got hurt my third year.
Those damn Air Huarache sneakers,
bro.
man.
Yeah, I know, and Nike, and it's still my people, but how that altered my career.
Yeah.
So you got it in your mind what you think is going to be, but then the path of a professional, even though we may try to set things up the way we want it to go, Halliburton in the championship game. Yeah. Right there for that moment you built up for, and then the injury happens. Yeah. And where you go from there, you don't know. Right. He'll come back. Yeah. He'll be strong.
He's in a dark spot right now.
But can you get back to the title? Yeah. When I got hurt, it was a different time period. I had a third-degree sprain, and they said it's better if you would have broke it. I'm a right-handed player jumping off my left foot. I lost everything. Yeah. My explosion, everything. So my total career from where I was at totally changed.
Now you had just dropped 50, right, before that injury?
Not too long before. The night before, we played at Washington. I had 44. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this was a back-to-back. We're going into Jersey. Back-to-back, and I'm. But it was a fluke. It was a fluke accident. I didn't. Part of it, I didn't tape.
But like I said, those Huaraches didn't have a lot of air.
Superstitions, ankle. Right? You got any superstitions?
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So my superstition, I didn't change the style of shoe I wore. Okay, and I didn't tape at the time. Yeah, you told me that. Okay, but I didn't change the style. So Nike said, we want you to wear these Huaraches. I'm like, oh, man, I don't know if I want to wear them. So I said, I'm going to do it. I'm warming up in the layup line. And I said, man, these shoes are too soft. Yeah. I said, but you know what? I'm going to play the first half. I'm going to change it at halftime. Yeah. First quarter, I come across the lane. Jason Williams, tall Jason, step on his foot.
Net Jason?
Net Jason. Okay. Yeah. Play for the Nets. Philly also. Yeah. Stepped on his foot, tore my ankle up right there. My decision was, don't wear these shoes, change them. I said, no, you know what? I'm going to wait till halftime. And it totally changed my career.
And that right there, and then however Halliburton finds a way to handle this freak accident just ties back into everything we were talking about, which is your decisions of what to do and what not to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. On that one, we go end it, man. I appreciate this, bro. And I want to come on your show, too, when you had some wrestlers so I could just learn some more about it, because I lost a little bit of it as I got older, got away from it. But, man, it used to come on every Saturday when I was younger.
Saturday night, 6:05.
Why was it 6:05 on TBS? On TBS, right?
TBS, everything ran at the 05.
Right? The 05.
I never understood why, but I tell the story all the time. At my house, Saturday night came. If you were watching something, it had better be over at 6:04.
So we can turn it, put on
my
wrestling.
Grandpa, I literally saw the man walk up, because this is before remotes at a certain point, walk up to the TV and
turn it down.
We had to change it, channel 3, and then there was a little box you had to hit TBS. Yep. It didn't matter. It better be over by 6:04, because we're watching Gordon Soley.
Gordon Soley, baby. Man. We got to end it on the Gordon Soley note, man. I appreciate it.
You mentioned him earlier. That's why I brought it back.
I appreciate it. Best of luck, man. I love seeing the success that your path is taking you on. And I love to see it. It's always good to have you on the show, bro.
Thank you, man. I'm just out here trying to make moves,
Living just enough for the city.
You know what I'm saying?
That's it.
I always get lucky to find myself as the number 2 to a solid number 1, and I'm okay with that, man.
Some great number 2s, brother.
That's
great
right.
Number 2s. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You my dog.
T, I got you over
I'm glad this worked out, man.
It was fun.
Most definitely.